So shall we start, sir?
Yeah, sure, please.
Okay. So very good morning to all the participants.
Good morning.
It is our great pleasure to have you all for the Knowledge 4.0 webinar series, which is one of the unique initiative of Chennai Institute of Technology under the guidance of Honorable Chairman Sri P. Sriram, a successful first generation entrepreneur, a well-known industrialist and managing director of MK Group of Companies. Under Knowledge 4.0 series, we have been conducting webinar series such as Technical Webinar Series, Research Webinar Series, Career Guidance Webinar Series, and Innovation Webinar Series. Today, we have Dr. Adivalagan, is a Managing Director and the Chief Executive Officer CEO of International Institute of Project Management, IIPM. He is going to deliver a talk on risk management in projects. I am very happy to introduce Dr. Adivalagan. Dr. Adivalagan is a PMP, PMI-SP, PMI-RMP from PMI USA. He is a master black belt in Lean Six Sigma process improvement. He is honors in civil and structural engineering from University of Madras. He is having a vast experience, that is more than 36 plus years of global project program and general management experience. He has done business analytics and ERM from IIM Bangalore. He has worked throughout the world, I can say. Few I will mention it. Apart from India, he has worked with Oman, United Arab Emirates, France, USA, Nepal, Thailand, etc. He has lectured throughout the world, as I said, including Sri Lanka, Dubai, Thailand, on skill building mission of youth and young project managers. He was project manager in power project company Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Was general manager contracting MNC Muscat. He has trained more than 5,000 project managers in 15 years all over the world. Delivered many lectures. He was instrumental in motivating youth to attain double hat-tricks, 6 times 100% pass continuous in +2 exams in rural schools. He has been interviewed by leading TV channels. I think mostly I used to see him apart from watching him in TVs in the Vivada Madai most of the time. For example, I can say Sun News, Jaya TV, Kalaja TV, Jaya Plus, Raj TV, Bodigi TV, News 7 channel, and most of the TV, Moon TV, etc. He has also delivered many lectures. Dr. Adivalagan has delivered lecture in SRM University, Anna University, St. Peter's University, Sona College of Technology, Velammal, etc. He is a certified film producer and director from Hollywood Film Institute, Los Angeles, USA. He is a founder CEO of IIPM and he is a well-known international speaker, author, consultant, trainer, and general manager, project management, etc. He is an entrepreneur also. So such a great person is going to give you a talk on risk management in projects. And the Chennai Institute of Technology was established in the year 2010 by our Honorable Chairman, Mr. Sriram. Our institute is being ranked within top 10 institute among private engineering colleges in Tamil Nadu. So it is a great pleasure to have today's speaker, Mr. Bo Arivalagan. Now I welcome Dr. Arivalagan to deliver talk on the project risk management in projects. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you all participants for attending this webinar today. This is, in fact, I would say this is the most important topic in today's world. In today's VUCA world, I would say today's world is a VUCA world. I'll explain more on this VUCA world, and risk management in VUCA world is more relevant today than ever it was. So before that, I thank Dr. Parthiban Pachaivannan for great introduction about me, and also Dr. Sriram, the chairman of this group of MK group of institutions, and this college CIT, Chennai Institute of Technology, for giving me this opportunity to address you all. And my name is, as he said, Dr. O. Arivalagan. I am an honors graduate in civil engineering. I have close to 36 plus years of project and program management experience across the globe, and I am now the CEO and director of IIPM, that is International Institute of Project Management, which is an approved and authorized training and management consultant, training provider of PMI USA, and we also do management consulting on projects, Lean Six Sigma, process improvement, etc., risk management. I am an alumni of IIM Bangalore. So I have done on enterprise risk management and data analytics from IIM Bangalore. I am a master black belt also in Lean Six Sigma. Plus there are several other credentials. Of course, Dr. Parthiban has introduced a lot about me, more on my profile. So I think that's enough. Now let me get into the main topic of today: risk management in projects, especially in this current VUCA world. So projects means, as you all know, it's a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product or service or result. This is the definition given by PMI. There is a Project Management Institute in USA. No, not now. Just 2 minutes. I'll brief, and then I'll prompt you, sir. So, as you know, the definition of project is different from operations, because all of you as engineers, future engineers, and faculty members attending this and professionals attending this, you should have a clear difference or understanding between what is a project, what is an operation. Project is anything that is temporary or temporary nature and creates a unique output or result or product. Whereas operation is an ongoing one, like manufacturing of water bottles, manufacturing of tube lights, manufacturing of cars. These are all operations. So operations also has got two characteristics. It must be an ongoing process, continuous manufacturing, and then it would give repetitive outputs, repetitive products, same, similar, not almost, 99% the same. Not even 1% it can't be different. 99.9% it should be the same. So when it is mass produced, repetitive, and when it is ongoing, mass produced and repetitive, then it is called operation. When it is temporary and gives unique output, that is the output is different from the previous output, significantly different, need not be too much different, but it has to be significantly different. For example, some people ask me this common doubt when we take training classes. We get the people certified, professional certified on global certification, project management professional certification, risk management professional global from US. So that needs lots of training. During the training, management training, they ask, sir, I am a house builder. But I am a 3-bedroom house builder, let us say. All my houses look almost the same. Almost the same. That's a key point. So they cannot look exactly the same. The client, individual villas, let us assume. You may be constructing 3-bedroom villas. So maybe in the ground floor, 1 bedroom, some hall, kitchen, etc. In the first floor, maybe 2 bedrooms, and then upper floor, water tank, terrace, etc. Compound wall. It's all fine. Typical villa. Now, when you construct 10 villas, all the 10 villas are unique in my opinion. But to the common man, He is a constructor of villa. So the 11th villa he constructs should be done like a cakewalk. No, it is not. Because the 11th villa also will going to be challenging to him. Whoever constructs, because there are many different unique things in the 11th villa construction. For example, the site could be different. For example, the owner is different. For example, the requirements could be different. For example, the specification tiles could be different. For example, the season in which the 11th villa is constructed could be different. So all these differences do pose a challenge to the constructor, to the builder. It's not exactly the like to the similar villa, similar site, similar owner, same site. The site change itself poses a big challenge to the constructors, because in some site there can be pile foundation, in some site ordinary soil, in some site clayey soil, in some site waterlogged. That's it. The cost and time. He completed last project in probably 10 months and in say 2 crores. But this project with rock, with the pile foundations, with the different configurations, and with the different tiles, will cost him 2.2 crore. So the cost is different time. He might take 10 months because it started in probably, let us say, the Corona period. The Corona has really put the world, VUCA square world. What is VUCA? Volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. These 4 characteristics are present today in any business, especially in construction business, construction projects, IT projects, electrical projects, manufacturing projects. In all projects, this VUCA plays top right in the center, because the volatility is there everywhere. Complexity is there. Uncertainty is there. So all these things, how can we manage? Then how are we managing in all this VUCA world? Because of perfect risk management. We are highly equipped with risk management, global knowledge. And you should also be. You will be taking next year probably, or the current year 4th year students, and then 3rd year students will be taking student projects, construction projects, electrical projects. And those projects are probably 3-4 months projects, or at the maximum 6 months. Now the 6 month project, you have very less budget. Very limited budget for student projects. I remember, I just recall with that, I will get into the slide, because they're all at global knowledge level. You should be really thankful to your institute and Dr. Parthiban and your chairman for exposing to the global terminology in about 5 minutes. I told you, I was a student like you before, 36 years before. I was a honors civil engineering student. In fact, I passed out honors. That time it was 5 years engineering course, not 4 years. And honors students should undertake additional 2 electives that are from master degree. So that time it used to be considered as equivalent to master degree because of the honors electives from 4th year itself. You should not have failed in any exam before until the 4th year, and you should score above 75. That itself was a project to me. In fact, I didn't know any project management techniques at that time. Only my sincerity, God's grace, and faculty's blessings. It was there, all were my parents' blessing, of course. So they all were there, my hard work, and I got through that project of clearing the honors project in civil engineering. Civil engineering honors was really tough at that time. 5 of us took the honors and we all passed. But as honors selective, honors students, we had to really do some big project compared to other students. So we took up a bus shelter construction. I studied from Government College of Engineering, Salem. At that time, it was one of the very good government colleges, very limited college, only 7 engineering colleges were there. So very good college. Even I owe a lot of gratitude to my college. Very good infrastructure, very good professors, very good teaching, like that. And so we took up that project of actually not a model bus shelter, actual bus shelter on National Highway in Bangalore, and we wanted to construct because there was no bus shelter for the people who travel the village side. That's near Karpur, near Salem. Now, but I was put as the project in charge for everything, design of the bus shelter, construction, financing it, casting the shell. Actually, we had chosen, our professor was a structural professor, so he recommended go to SERC Chennai, Taramani, and construct your bus shelter with the funicular shells roof. Funicular, like in Tamil we say Kotanguchi, no? That is the inspiration. And the tortoise shell, that's the inspiration for that. They don't fail in compression. Even Kotanguchi, if you put it on this mode and then even ask elephant to stand on it, it won't fail because it disposes all the force by compression to the earth. No tension at all. The shape is like that. Tortoise also is like that only. That's why its shell is so famous. So somebody earlier days got inspired and then they made a concrete funicular shell of like coconut shell, thin, no reinforcement. In the shell, there won't be any reinforcement. That was a very novel technique and it became very popular. Not ours. Ours was just a miniature version of a big funicular shell projects at that time. But we came to SERC Chennai from Salem and we submitted for approval and they approved it, took back, and we got hold of some constructor. Students' age, even before we completed our civil engineering graduation, we constructed a bus shelter, real full-scale usable bus shelter on the highway, Bangalore highway, Salem, Bangalore highway, by digging. That's a very unique project, I would say. It's a single foundation project, only one foundation. I mean, this side one and that side one. And it's a cantilever, double cantilever, balanced cantilever. And the roof will have no reinforcement, only the funicular shells, like about 3 cells in this row, about 4 cells this side. Each cell is 1 meter by 1 meter wide, 1.2 meter or so. How we cast that shell? We cast a mold in the college itself, campus, and then we poured concrete, compacted. We had a releasing agent to release the shell. It is like coconut thickness, only about probably 2 centimeter thickness. No reinforcement. Only in the edge there will be some reinforcement in the bottom. Only 1 rod of 6 mm or 2 rods of 6 mm, something like that. So absolute saving, almost 40% steel, roof steel is saved in that. With that, we had to lift the shells using releasing agent, cure it, and then transport it to the site, construct the pillars, double cantilever, and loading, one side loading. So beautiful. Even today, I remember one of the best students' projects at that time. So we completed it on time, within budget. We got our award. The honors award degree, and it was a standing example for nearly 5-6 years. People used it, and then when the highway department wanted to expand, probably they demolished. Recently when we visited, we found it was not. So doing project after graduation, becoming PE is something different. Doing a live full-scale project which is going to be used by public on national highway, when you are an engineering student itself is totally different. We did that. So that was the foundation stone. On seeing it, you will not believe, on seeing our dedication, especially my dedication in that design and construction and financing. No, I didn't finance. I didn't put any money because I was very poor at that time. And we gathered money from part-time students by teaching them computer language, C++, Fortran, etc. They were rich, they were constructors. So we made friends with them and we taught them. So it was sharing of needs. And it's a story I'm telling you. In the student age, don't take up projects, but with little support, you need to gather all the supports outside through your strengths. That gives you entrepreneurs also. That's later. I get a lot of startup companies. Angel investor also, I'm an angel investor. Up to $1 lakh we can invest if the project is cleared. Okay, so we did that, and after seeing that dedication in construction itself, in design, and the professor suggested me, I was interested in coming to teaching as a profession. Did maybe pursue a master's in IIT Madras because of the honors, and then come as a professor. But he said, Hari, no, you please go to Chennai. You don't come here. Maybe 4 or 5 years you would love teaching, but after that probably it's a kind of little bit stagnation. But for I have seen your caliber. So please, he gave the address and he asked me to go to Western Crompton in Chennai. That was, at that time, that was the #1 contracting company in Chennai, Western Crompton, power projects company. That was the blessing in disguise and the God's touch or God's destiny, I should say. And that turned my life. I became, instead of a professor, I became a project engineer. So, and that turned my life upside down for good. So then my life is full of all the 36 years. India, big companies, and then foreign. About 10 years I worked in all various countries in Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Muscat as general manager of a big contracting company, and then US, France, all in projects. So with that story, as a project manager at that time itself, you used to say, you not work like a project engineer, like a project manager, you took care of everything. Probably that's God has planned, for me. So with that small story of bus shelter, how we managed at the student age itself, a lifetime or a life-size lifetime project for us. I'll get into now the serious risk management only. There are 10 knowledge areas in any project that is decided by the PMI. Not only 10, there are 2 more, but they say 10 minimum you should know. Cost management, project cost management, project HR management, human resources, project communication, project procurement, contractor, then project scope management, then project quality management. So there are so many. Out of that, today we have taken only risk management in project, because that's where most engineers, most constructors, most people are very, very lagging behind, because risk is a nightmare to everyone. How to anticipate risk, how to identify risk, how to prioritize them, how to then respond to the risk when they occur, or before they occur, after they occur, then how to implement the responses you planned when an actual risk occurs. These are the things we are going to see today. Now, I'll take the help of my PowerPoint slides. Dr. Parthiban, can you please help me with the first slide, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, please. Hello, yeah. So you can see the slide now. Chennai Institute of Technology, Knowledge 4, webinar on risk management in projects. That's my picture. Probably you must have seen now. So, okay, this is my introduction. Fine, sir. I think you can move to the next slide. Yes. Is it in the presentation mode, sir? Yeah, I think so. Yes. So webinar on risk management in projects. Yes, this is again introduction. See, you can see my certifications. Dr. O. Arivalagan, PMP, PMI RMP, that is risk management professional from US. And then you can also see SP, that is scheduling, how to schedule projects on time, within budget, like that. Then MBB, Master Black Belt in Lean Six Sigma, in process improvement. Currently, I am CEO of IAPM. IAPM stands for, in the bottom, you can see www.iapmchennai.com. That's our website. And we are doing this throughout the world for the last 20 years, training and consulting on projects, project management, etc. Sir, over to the next slide, please. Yes, importance of project risk management. It's a very, very important slide. You see, 73%, see, people here, according to PMI's Pulse of Profession, 73% projects meet their objectives in organization that apply formal risk management. So they say that 73% of the projects are completed within their time and budget if they embrace risk management. If they don't, they're gone. So risk management is such an important, framework. See, future is full of projects. I tell you, not operations. Future is not operations. Operations, you can have a small area, factory. You can make the product once it is approved. You can make millions of products. That is artificial intelligence, machine language. That is machine will do. Can machine do project? No. Project is an intuitive. It's both project management is both an art as well as a science. While science part, AI and ML can take care. Science part, artificial intelligence, machine language, robotic process automation. These things are the science part, they can take care. But who will take care of the art part? Project management is an art as well as a science. You may ask, sir, is it equal? Art 50%, science 50%? No. Art is probably 60%, science is probably 40%. Art is very heavy because project management involves too much of human interactions, human intelligence, soft skills more than the hard skills. Probably in project management, 30% to 40% only hard skills, technical skills, 70 to 60 to 70% soft skills, communication, human intelligence, empathy, sympathy, reward recognition system, risk management. Risk management is both an art as well as a science. It is intuitive. You can't be really, in estimating the probability itself, your intuitiveness will come. Probability of a risk, we will see. You may think that risk management is mostly a science. No, it has got a good amount of art part. So naturally, even if you are a very good technical guy, there is no guarantee that you will be a successful project manager because of its intuitive and art nature. That's why project managers are in great demand. That art part, no amount of artificial intelligence can handle, because to that level, AI and ML to come, it will take probably another 2 decades. So at least another 2 decades, project management is going to rule the roost, because humans are needed. Okay, I won't say only project management. Wherever human beings cannot be replaced, there, yes, you can think of. For example, storytelling, movie making, storytelling. These are all the much sought after skills in engineers, with engineers. When you want to develop a product, new product, when you want to get some funding from your new product development, you need to tell it as a story, and that fellow should visualize it as a story, and they should be impressed with your story as a student, and they will finance them. So they visualize, they presented it very nice. So I think they will deliver that product as they visualized. They have the visualization skills. So these are all not replaceable by computers or AI or ML. So there are more than 250 people attending this, and out of that, definitely a good majority of you may not be interested in technical jobs. Some of you may be interested in people related, storytelling, visual communication, probably projects management. So those people can resort to these kind of courses and these kind of areas where the demand is more, supply is less, because mostly engineers, they want to join IT companies or some construction companies. Even in construction companies, I've seen in interviews, most of the fresh engineers, they want to go to design department or architectural department or CAD department. These are the technical areas, but very few want to go to, I'll tell you, project, site, coordination. They don't want to go to these normal areas. They want to go to the site. Very few go to the site, projects, quantity surveying, actual surveying, project coordination, these areas. These areas, I tell you, these areas people slowly will come to after 10 years, I'm saying. Assuming somebody joined design, technical, etc., etc. And somebody joins project coordination, project engineer in the beginning. And then very soon after 10 years, the project engineer will become project manager or project manager of that design engineer who would have become chief technical engineer. All the chief technicals should be reporting to the project manager by international norms. Now, who has become the boss? The project manager has become the boss. So I just to give you a career guidance also on this. Why in this area risk management is very important. The career you choose now itself is a big risk you are taking. And don't worry if you are not technically very strong. There are outside world, there are many companies in the site, in project coordination, project procurement, in project let us say quantity surveying. They need people who are not technically that sound, but people are willing to coordinate with the people. That area artificial intelligence cannot replace. So choose that. Don't or choose your career by analyzing the risk on each side. That itself is a risk management tip for you today, for most of you are here. Now, sir, next slide, please. Sir, over to the next slide. Yeah. So risk management, in fact, enables. Yeah, this is okay, sir. Today's world, I have already mentioned this VUCA world. There is VUCA here. So I have explained also VUCA world: volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world. So today's world is exactly VUCA world. So in VUCA world, good knowledge in risk management only helps people survive and sustain. So I gave them first tip that out of say 250 plus people, 50% of them may be in technical savvy people, but balance 50% may be non-technical people oriented. They can choose all these career by analyzing the risk in their ability. So that's one thing. It enables, risk management enables organizations, not only organizations, individuals also, to tie the project results to business goals, to compete more effectively in their markets. Risk management helps competitively. You can quote a very less price, less budget, and compete with others, still manage, because less price quoting is a risk. Less time quoting, lesser than your competitor. Less price than your competitor. Less price, less time than your competitor. That's a risk. But if you don't quote less price than your competitor, less time than your competitor, you can't get the job. If you don't get the job, you have to keep thousands of people unemployed, with work, without work, but still you have to pay salary. So how you make your company competitive by taking risk? What risk we say? Quote less price than the competitor, quote less time than the competitor. If he says 12 months, you quote 11 months. Sir, okay, quoted and taken. How do I then complete? Risk management will help you, because both are risk. How to manage, we will see. Then sustain the organization, that's all okay. Respond to the impact of the business environment, changes in the industry, adjusting to the, now today you are all on webinars. I am doing it on mobile phone through Webinar Jam. 280 people are attending from your places, from your house, or from your office, or from your college. It's a brilliant change. Your institute, Chennai Institute of Technology, your professors, they are agile. They have responded to the changes in the education industry. Same way, we, the faculty, the guest speakers, the industry stalwarts or industry, let us say, the business people, we have also adapted to the changes. That is adaptive. We have not defunct or put our hands on the heads and then sat down. Oh, Corona, complete business down. What do? We have immediately analyzed all the alternatives available. That is risk management. Why we are able to, my company I'm talking about. Ours is in education, business only, throughout the world. Not only in Chennai, around the world. And we produce 5,000 project managers around the world. They're all in very big companies now. And so we can't say, sorry, our company is down because of the Corona. We have to respond to the changing business environment. That is managing risk. That is not in our control. Controlling the entire world is not in our control. But rather, how to adapt to the changes introduced by the nature. So we moved to the Zoom training session, webinar-based training session. We are doing on Zoom because that is more closed. Now here 280 people, but that is limited to management training. That is limited to 15 to 20 people. But around the world, Tokyo, Singapore, Malaysia, Afghanistan, New Zealand, Dubai, they all attend in the same seminar, same training, same day. 5 days they attend. 5 days, 5 full days. This is only your 1.5 hours lecture, but 5 full days we conduct on Zoom, video to video. They can interact. They really feel it as a blessing in the disguise because they're able to see me, the faculty, through a video and interrupt, raise their hand and interrupt and ask questions. And they would have never imagined it in the traditional courses of classroom courses. So the corona became a blessing in a disguise for us, for many businesses. Cost is reduced, but the user experience is increased because they feel like meeting the faculty one-to-one from their home, taking their favorite dishes from their dining table. That's great. Truly, actually, I tell you, truly, we have become International Institute of Project Management now only. Because simultaneously, we are conducting batches for people from Dubai, Tokyo, USA, Singapore, like that, based on some timings. So, because of our good risk management. Okay, sir. Next slide. So next we are going to see the topics we are going to see in the next 45 minutes. Sir, next slide, please. Yeah, this who should attend, who will benefit out of attending this webinar? I had people from industry, students like CEOs, CXOs. They are also there, project managers, engineers, construction managers, students, faculty members. So all are there. So this is a mix. This lecture is a mix for everyone. So everyone can take something out of this webinar. I can guarantee. It's not a pure student-based, lecture or a webinar. Please, sir. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. See that these are the key topics. No, I think you moved. Strategy for risk management. These are the topics. Strategy for risk management. I'll read out the topics first. Even if 1 or 2 topics for want of time I cannot cover, then you can probably seek or arrange for another lecture if your institute is interested, if you're all interested, or you can reach us later. Strategy for risk management, very important. Agile adaptive environments. I already explained you with the second story, IIPM story. How IIPM, CIT also. You should actually thank your chairman and your this webinar organizers, especially Dr. Parthiban and his other faculty members for responding to not keeping you people idle, engaging you through such webinars, imparting lessons through using technology. That is agile. Adaptive. They are highly adaptive to environment. We, for our business, IIPM, I told you how we moved from in-person classroom session to totally Zoom session, where they feel more in-person, than classroom session, and we have become more international than before. So that's actually blessing in disguise, I told you. So that's okay. That was the strategy for us. Strategy is how to apply risk management and how to come over or overcome this threat that is the risk posed by corona or the COVID lockdown. We have come across both. And risk management plan. For everything you have to develop a risk management plan first. So in that you should first assess the risk appetite of the stakeholders, all the stakeholders of your project. Who are all the stakeholders of your project? That is another knowledge area out of 10 I told you, project stakeholders management. That's a very beautiful knowledge area, very important knowledge area, because Salem Chennai highway, that is again, that was stalled because of the stakeholders protest, huge protest. Throughout the highway, they protested because stakeholder management was not appropriate, poor. In spite of central government, state government, they put lots of people, but they could not. The project was stalled for some time. And then they restarted now. That's because, don't you think they have no money, they have no time, they have no big people, but stakeholder management was poor. So your project also may be stalled if you are not very good in stakeholder management. That's why PMI has introduced the 10th knowledge area called project stakeholder management. That's a very brilliant session actually. That's also stakeholder management is one of the risks. So when you assess the key stakeholders, you should know their risk appetite. That's why that point is given. What is the risk appetite? See, risk appetite is your willingness to take risk. There are 2 types of people with respect to risk appetite. Some are risk seekers. Some are risk avoiders. They avoid risk basically. Their trait, their appetite, their hungry is to avoid. They're play safe people. Some are risk seekers. For example, as a nation, Israel and US is a risk-seeking nation. Launching rocket to moon, launching rocket to Mars. It is there in their blood, something like that. For example, India as a nation, if you want to categorize, we are more like a risk-avoiding nation. As a nation. Sir, in India, you mean there are no risk-seeking? No. Are there? They are. But majority, I'm telling you, largely who you are. Even individually, you can't say, sir, I'm a 100% risk seeker, I'm a 100% risk avoider. I cannot say I must be a fool. Nobody can say, claim yourself, your risk appetite like that. Sir, I am mostly a risk avoider, you can say. I'm mostly a risk seeker, you can say. I'm a 100% risk seeker, you're wrong. 100% risk avoider, you are wrong. So if you want to really look wisdomful, please say your risk appetite is mostly risk seeker, mostly risk avoider, because each one of us do have both appetites. Sometimes if you are basically a risk seeker, sometimes you show the tendency or symptoms of risk avoider also, vice versa. So that's about risk appetite. You should know the risk appetite of your key stakeholders. If you are taking a project, your consultant, your client, your major contractors, subcontractors, your regulating bodies, your team members, and your own risk appetite, who you are, very important. Next, risk threshold. Everybody has got a risk threshold. Everybody has got a risk threshold. Beyond that, they will cry or they will slap you back. Within the threshold, they will withstand. So threshold means the withstanding capacity, withstanding limit, tolerance limit. That's called threshold. Threshold actually is that cutoff point is the threshold point. Tolerance is the range from the mean up to, let us say, if you buy a 20 mm rod, tolerance is specified as plus or minus 5 mm. Now, your threshold on the upper side is 25 mm. That is, beyond 25 mm, you will reject the rod. Within 25 mm, for example, if you get a 22 mm rod, it's above your mean of 20, but it's 22, but it's within the tolerance. You will accept that rod. You are tolerating that. Same way, our past Chief Minister, Dr. MGR, had a threshold. In all his movies, you can see his threshold for fighting with the villains was 3 beats, 3 slaps on his face or on his face. Beyond 3 slaps, that's it. Villain is out. He will take the villain for a ride, big ride. But what was his threshold? 3. Within 3, oh, venda, solran kele, vendangvar. Moona dadi correcta, adu left hand, in the side, or overama, abdi konjavaram, abdi eduthu papa ratta, avladha, abdi tunduvar. Tindide. Threshold he has exceeded. That's it. Next, the villain is out. So that is threshold. Please remember, threshold is the cutoff value beyond which you will initiate an action that can be severe. But within threshold, you will tolerate the excess. Second slap, he will tolerate. First slap, he will tolerate. Third, he will tolerate. Fourth, if you try, that's it. Even before he tries, he'll catch hold of his hand. That's it. You tear him apart. So that is threshold. Fine. So risk gradient structure, every company should have a risk gradient structure. Especially there is a chart. In the end, I'll show you there's a chart. Actually, you have to divide your project into various headings. Procurement related risk, customs related risk, quality related risks, design related risks, stakeholders related risks, site related risks. Like that you have to. In these categories, you have to find at least 5 to 10 risks under each category. Now, I have told you at least 10 categories. 10 into 10, 100 risks. You can easily identify 100 risks in your project. Only thing is you identify 10 heads. Under each head, identify 10. Go to that subject, that head expert, head of that section. Ask him 10 risks in his head, in his group. Site manager means ask him 10 site risks from the site manager. Same way, ask from design managers 10 risks. Club everything. You got 100 risks. Don't be happy with 15 risks, 20 risks. No. Any moderate project will have at least 100 risks, especially a construction project. So you have identified the risk also. Enterprise environmental factor. Know the company. You are working for the company. And in India, in Tamil Nadu, So your company's environment, who are your bosses? What is the culture? Is it a risk-taking culture or it's a risk-avoiding culture? For example, largely in India, Reliance is quoted as a risk-seeking culture, whereas in South India, quoted as the TVS companies, group of companies are quoted as risk aversion culture. Generally, probably they take lots of care before embarking on something. So largely in the business arena, they're called risk-avoiding culture company. Reliance is considered as a risk-seeking company. So if you are an engineer, if you have got a job in a risk-avoiding company, but you are basically, your appetite is a risk seeker, then all your innovative ideas, your overtime or your new techniques, all will be questioned. They ask you to keep aside. Only try the tested and proven methods. So knowing your company, its culture, its people, and the outside environment, the India. I told you India is generally a risk aversion, a risk safe environment. But US, I told you, if you are working in US and the company itself will be risk taking, and the environment outside also is risk seeking, they will encourage your innovative methods. Country also might encourage, even client also. So as engineers, the main point is, it is not enough if you know your risk appetite, who you are, risk averse or risk seeking alone, not enough. Know the appetite of the company, the culture, and the government the company is in, the state, the country. Okay, process assets. Many companies will have risk register, risk template. Use them. If they have, they are called process assets. If they don't have, you have to slog and you have to create your assets. Then identify risk. I told you how to identify risk using 10 knowledge, 10 topics, 10 headings. I told you, go to the site manager, ask him to. You don't identify yourself. You don't have to. I tell you, one good thing in project management or project managers or project coordinators is that they just need to be coordinators. They have to put the right people in the right place at the right time. Now like what your webinar organizers are doing, Dr. Parthiban is doing, that they're not, probably, I can't say something like this, but assuming they're not experts in risk management, but they think that you guys have to be taught on risk management. So they know who is the right person and which is the right day and how to deliver it to the majority of the people. Maybe in your training hall, in your assembly conference hall, maybe only 20, 40, 60 people. But Zoom, Webinar Jam, 290 people are now benefiting. I see the number 292 now, 293 now. Within a second, it has increased. So 293 people are listening to me and sharing. So benefiting, 293, value for money. So this is what is called project coordination. So he doesn't have to have the expert technical risk management skill, but put the people, right people in the right place at the right time. That is what is project coordinator's job, people management skill. So they are very good in talking to us. And you also as engineers, not necessarily always, please don't go to the drawing board, don't go to the design board, CAD. If you have real flair for it, please go, you will excel there. But please remember, after 10 years, you have to report to the project manager, who invariably will not be a technically superior guy. He will be a management guy. Fine. So, okay. Then risk identification, I told you, identify the key stakeholders and ask them to identify. Then list them in a template, in an employee register kind of thing. List the name of the risk identified. That's it. You have the risk register. And ask the risk, whoever identified, to identify its probability and impact also. Probability scale is 1 to 10, not normally 1 to 10, but if it is not 1 to 10, 0.1 to 0.9. So risk, some companies use even 1 to 10. Some companies use 1 to 5. They are not good scale, because a risk cannot have a scale of 1. A risk also cannot have a scale of 10. Always it should be 0.1 to 0.9. We will see a risk matrix also. There I'll explain. That's a very good takeaway. Please never rate a risk probability in 1 to 10 scale or 1 to 5 scale. It's always 0.1 minimum, 0.9 the other side. So that is risk register and risk prioritization. That is what in the next scale we will see. How to prioritize. See, 100 risks you identified. Now, how to analyze the risks and prioritize them. Sir, next slide, please. How to prioritize. Now we have identified 100 risks in, say, construction project. So all electrical, mechanical also you can understand. In your own projects, you can identify 100 risks. Sir, next slide, please. Now the point is how to prioritize the risk. The 100 risks you identified, no? All the 100 risks you cannot handle with equal priority. No, it won't be also. Now you need to prioritize them into the next slide. You see risk prioritization matrix, PI matrix. That PI stands for probability and impact. So if you will have a matrix in the end, we will see probability on this scale y-axis, impact on the x-axis, and we will have some traffic light signal, red zone, amber zone, and then green zone, and we will classify the risk based on their probability of occurrence today, assessed probability of occurrence today, and the impact if assessed. Impact is not on dollar value. Impact is on a scale, again on 0.1 to 0.9, simply 0.1 to 0.9. So you have to ask the risk identifier. Suppose somebody says, I'll take one risk and explain to you throughout. Everybody can understand. You don't have to be a civil engineer. You can be a mechanical, electrical, non-professional, lecturer. Anybody can understand because everybody is familiar with this situation. Assume that your house is being constructed and you are now in the first month, but the roof of house will be poured probably after 6 months. Now the 6 months come in the October time, assuming you are scheduling. Now October, usually there will be some rain. Kodegala Malay, something like that. The Kodegala Malay actually in the Diwali Mala Varadi Usuala Vandalundro. Apa this is the risk situation. Ada Varade Anal Varla. Abdina the risk situation. A kind of partial uncertainty or partial certainty. So risk is also known as a known unknown event. A known unknown. Theriyu adhe samayam theriyadu. Adhaadu probability of occurrence irukku ana sure aan theriyadu. Adhaadu probability of occurrence 1 சொன்னீங்கன்னா sure, 0 சொன்னீங்கன்னா not sure. But நீங்க probability of occurrence எவ்வளவு சொல்றீங்கன்னா what is the probability that the rain will occur during roof concreting, that is 6 months later from now when the roof is concreting is being done. Sir, October months, October usually some rain occurs, but exactly on the roof concreting day it may occur, it may not occur, but there's a high probability of occurrence. So I might say it is 0.7, sir, on a scale of 0.1 to 9, 0.9, 0.1 to 0.9, 0.7. That means it's a high probability. Fine. Now impact on the same scale, 0.1 to 0.9 also you can use simply. Sir, impact is not that big. Anyway, we have to reconcrete. It's okay. So medium impact. Medium means let us say 0.4. So now the product of, now based on probability alone, if you rate the score prioritize, it is high probability. If you rate the risk, prioritize the risk based on the impact alone, it is a medium probability. So the usual mistake people do internationally, even highly educated, they prioritize the risk or call a risk as a high risk based on impact alone, mostly, or based on probability alone. No, please don't do that risk. Majority of the people worldwide, they rate the risk as high priority risk or very high risk based on the impact. Very high risk is different from very high probability risk, or very high probability risk is different from very high priority risk. Priority is decided based on the product of probability and impact, not just the probability alone and not just the impact alone. Priority. Priority of identified risk is decided based on the product of p-value and I-value and the resulting score where it comes. For example, I told you 0.7 and this I told you 0.4 impact, 0.28. Assuming that 0.28 comes in the amber zone or orange zone, lies in the, then this risk is to be prioritized as a medium risk, even though probability is high, medium risk. Okay, now I tell you one more classic example where many people, 90% of the people go wrong in prioritizing this risk. Normally, when you ask somebody, this earthquake, what is the earthquake risk? If you ask, what is the priority of this earthquake risk? They usually say, no, it's a very high priority. Please, it's a very high priority. Don't leave it. High priority risk. Very high priority. Very high priority. No, if earthquake comes, the entire building will be collapsed. The entire city also may be collapsed. The damage will be billions of dollars. So, even somewhat educated, they only look at the impact and the devastation it makes. And they say it as a mistakenly very high priority risk. Don't leave it. Do take care. Do very high priority. That's a wrong usage. It's a very high impact risk, but a very low priority risk. I would say very low priority risk. Very low, not even low. Very low. எப்படி சாருங்கிறீங்க அப்படின்னா probability of occurrence பாருங்க. Probability of occurrence of an earthquake is very, very low. நான் ஒரு ஸ்கேல் சொன்னேன் 0.1 to 0.9 சொன்னேன். Hello. So something has happened. So my video is on, but slide is not on. Okay. Can I continue, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Can
sir.
I continue? Okay.
Yes,
So
yes.
many people say very high priority risk earthquake. Please, as engineers, you say it's a very low priority risk because the probability of an earthquake occurrence is 1 in 1,000, meaning 0.001. It won't occur that easily. Very, very low. Very, very low probability. So the probability scale is 0.001 into 0.4 for the impact. Even impact for earthquake, you say 0.8 itself, very high impact, 0.8. 0.8 into 0.001, you put, it is 0.008. The product of probability and impact, that value, 0.008 only should be put in that priority map. 0.008 will not be there at all, because the maximum zone classified in that map is, sir, for a minute, can you go to 3 slides down, please? For a minute, it's useful to go to that matrix. I have that matrix below. Sir, can you go to that matrix, please? 3-4 slides down. One more down. This one. You see here, this side. Don't look at the right side, that's the opportunity. This side is the threat, left side. And on the vertical side, probability scale. On the horizontal side, impact scale. And you see 3 zones. The dark one is the red zone, and this gray one is the amber or a medium zone, and the light one is the low zone, low risk zone. And below, outside this picture is very, very low zone. That means, see the scale, 0.1 to 0.9. This side, 0.1 to 0.8, 0.05 to 0.8. So, earthquake, I don't know if I have the pointer. So, okay. So, this will come somewhere here. Sir, if you can put the pointer, probably here, it should be shown. So, that is the, it will come outside the graph, I would say. So, that means earthquake is a very low priority risk. Very low priority risk. Sir, what should I do with the very low priority risk? Don't act actively, or don't take responses seriously. Just watch them, keep them under watch list, and do take some precautions in the design. That's enough. If you actively accept it, you have to have a serious attendance to it. That means which risk we actually accept, those risks which come in the red zone in the top. Here it is dark zone. Those risks that come in the red zone. If you actually accept a earthquake risk, then you have to have a standby contingency reserve. If you build a house in the 3rd floor or 6th floor, if you actively accept that risk, earthquake risk, the normal response is to have a contingency reserve. That means you are thinking it as a very high risk in the zone you are building your house. That means anytime high risk means the probability of occurrence is very high. Impact also. Impact is the house will be collapsed. Probability is very high. That means anytime, any soon the earthquake will occur. That you're wrong understanding. So the response is to have a contingency reserve. The contingency reserve is to have another house, not in Chennai itself, another city where probability of occurrence is very low. Let us say Ooty, Kodaikanal, or Bangalore. But that will cost you another 45 to 50 lakhs. Here it is another 50 lakhs. Are you going to construct 250 lakhs houses just because to tell somebody, hey, why are you building a house in Bangalore, man, when you don't have people to live in this house itself? No. You know, Chennai is earthquake is high. So I'm very clever, wisdomful. I'm building a house in Bangalore just because if the earthquake very soon comes, we will be safe. We will be in Bangalore in that house. People who are not as wisdomful will die here in that house. How sure are you when the earthquake occurs, you will be in Bangalore? How sure are you that your house will be demolished or destructed when the earthquake occurs? How sure are you within 3 months, 6 months, the earthquake will occur? Is it in that zone? These are the wrong understanding of people who just, some people ask for earthquake proof structures. It is not possible. It is a very misnomer. No, earthquake resistant structure is acceptable. That's why Dr. Shantakumar, yeah, Shantakumar. He was my professor. I have done a lot of project works and research works under him, with him. When I was in Crompton, Greece, for transmission line. He is a very international famous author on transmission line projects. He has written a book published by McGraw-Hill by Dr. A. Shantakumar. And he gave me, I tell you, he gave me a signed copy of that book when it was first released as a mark of respect, because I reviewed it and gave a lot of good comments from practical side. And we have done a lot of projects along with him on transmission line tower analysis, multi-story buildings. So I tell you, he used to tell a lot of times on these lectures in us that there is no such structure as earthquake proof. It's very costly. You can't. Earthquake resistant only. So earthquake resistant is good one, and you don't need it. You don't need a second house in Bangalore just for earthquake purpose. If you are building another house in Bangalore for investment, you have a lot of money to rent it out. You are not going there as a earning. It's okay, but just to save earthquake and you will be there, and that house will be safe. This house will be collapsed, so you will go and live. That is a very foolish idea. So that's not there. So earthquake resistant, if you invest, that's okay. That is watch priority, low risk, and you can make your entire the structure, the story building itself ductile, so that it will bend but it may not crack. Okay, that's again risk management technique. Sir, can you please move backward to the third slide, please? Move backward the topics. So one more up. I think one more up also. So most of the things I have explained. I think one more up. Yeah, here only. PA matrix. You see? No, sir. The next one. Next one. Risk prioritization matrix. That matrix only I showed. Now red zone, medium zone, low zone, and HML. HML stands for high, medium, low. High priority, medium priority, low priority. The 100 risk you identified, you have to prioritize using that matrix into high priority, medium priority, low priority. Medium and low priority risk out of 100, probably about 80 risk will be in that category only. Medium and low. Only 20 risk will be in high priority. Why I am saying, there is a rule called Pareto rule, Pareto law, which says in a population of risks, about 20% will only come in the high, extreme zone, high zone. Same way, low, extreme low, 20%. Balance, medium. But usually we put medium and low in low zone, watch list. The top 20 high priority we will take to the quantitative analysis, wherein how do I quantify now in dollar value, in rupee terms? If the risk occurs, that risk that I told you, rain during roof concreting, that will come as a high priority risk only, I'm sure, because the probability of rain coming during Diwali time is high, and the impact is also for let us say a 1.2 crore house villa. If the roof concreting is totally drenched by the rain, entire roof has to be redone. That will cost at least 10 lakhs more. So 10% is a very big. After all, that contractor will take only 10% as a profit out of 1.2 crore. The entire 10% is gone on that roof, re-concreting the roof concreting. So that is a high impact and high probability risk. So it will come under high risk only. High risk means you have to quantify in rupee terms, in time terms, what is the impact. For that, the technique used is interviewing. Go to a subject matter expert, say a site manager, and ask him, sir, you are the project manager. Project manager is different, site manager is different, risk manager is different. If you are a risk manager, go to the site manager, ask him, so if a concreting, if a heavy rain occurs during roof concreting, what would be the impact? Sir, entire roof we may have to redo, so probably 7 to 8 lakhs. Is the cost impact. What is the time impact? Sir, project will be delayed definitely by another 2 weeks, 15 days. We have to remove all the damaged roof, reshuttering, and then reconcreting. So all will be easily dragging the project by 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. So you have to inform the client. 2 to 3 weeks, he'll tear you apart. No, nobody will accept on a 10-month project almost nearly a month delay. They'll not accept. So that is the risk management is very important. Fine. Okay. So now you have to, yes, you see quantitative you have done, then Monte Carlo, yes curve, contingency reserve. This is where very important, contingency reserve. If you think that you are in the first month, I tell you, the roof concreting, rain all not occurred. That is what is risk management. In the first month itself, you have identified a possibility of rain during roof concreting after 6 months. You are prioritized into high priority risk. With all the interviewing, with all the knowledge, it comes as a high priority risk. Now what you have to do, you have to provide contingency reserve. Only for high priority risk and contingency reserves are provided. Contingency reserve is what? If the risks occur as identified, and you have to provide some time, extra time in schedule now itself, and extra budget in cost now itself, in case they occur. In case they occur as planned after 6 months, you will use those reserve amount and the reserve time. But you will inform the client and your bosses also. Sir, I tell you, your project will be 3 weeks delayed. Now itself, first month itself, I am telling you, your project is exposed to a 3 weeks of delay in case a rain occurs during roof concreting. Roof concreting is happening in October. We are now in February. But now itself, as part of our risk management, I am telling you, sir, please, if your project is very critical, even 1 day delay also, you cannot observe, please tell now itself. We will take care, but it might increase little bit cost to you and to us also. No, it's okay. There is only a probability. No, we'll take the risk. We will see. But it's good that you informed us that we may get the house 3 weeks later. That is the risk we are exposed to. So you have informed. I think it's fine. 1 month also it's okay. But don't delay because I can bear 1 month. But try to complete it on time. But I'm okay. In the current house, I will live for 1 more month. No problem. But it's good that you are informing me the risks involved. What is the risk I'm exposed to? That is what the clients want. Make a partner. Inform them. Okay. Then cost impact. That is what 7-8 lakhs I told you, no? If the roof is to be reconcreted, if the rain occurs, totally mismanaged. So via media is don't leave it open. Allow the rain to spoil all. Erect a tarpaulin. That is the response we are going to see. What is the response? Next. So next slide, please. What is the response I can design now itself for the anticipated, identified high risk of rain during roof concreting. Next, yeah, management reserve. That is for the management. That is for the general manager and for the client. You have informed the risk exposure, no? So they'll, okay, in case this guy is okay, he has informed, but there's a possibility also. Let me keep 3 weeks reserve in case that occurs. They may keep or they may not keep. But now management reserve is for unknown. For the top management and for the client, they will keep, not for you. As a project engineer, as a site engineer, as project manager, you have to worry only about the contingency reserve. That contingency reserve is about 2 to 3 weeks extra in the time, and cost they may not give you that much. That is definitely they may give you in case rain occurs. They will not allow you to spoil the entire roof concrete. They'll ask for a via media. Okay, are you going to turn a blind eye? No, sir. Then what is your response to the risk in case it occurs? Sir, I'll put a tarpaulin over the entire house and then I'll continue with the concrete. And I'll add a little more cement and sand to compensate for the extra little bit wetness due to the rain. And I'll suitably design the water cement ratio. So to take care of that. Oh, great. How much money you need for that tarpaulin and extra night works? Sir, I have to do night work also. Night lighting, night safety, overtime. Okay, tell me the extra money needed for all those things. If the rain doesn't come, you don't need any of these things. If the rain occurs, but you still have to continue, there are two options. Leave the roof unconcreted or concrete, but all the concrete spoiled. Both are not acceptable. Continue with some response. That is tarpaulin plus night work, plus night light, plus safety precautions, plus overtime. That will definitely cost you some money. That money is not part of your roof concreting cost budget. Roof concreting, they would have given you maybe $2,000, say 1 lakh as the cost of roof concreting. For concreting and labor, etc., shuttering, that is 1 lakh, let us say. So now contingency reserve is the reserve amount for the tarpaulin, for the night work, for the safety lighting, for any emergency accident. So that might be probably 30,000. So 30,000 is the contingency reserve. That they won't give you in hand right now. They'll approve a budget of CR of 30,000 for roof concreting, for a 1 lakh worth of work. In case, as identified, in case a light rain occurs, in case you have to continue with the concreting, you can't stop, and the rain also occurs, you have to continue with the work, then you have to layer a tarpaulin and you have to increase the overtime, you have to night working. So for that already 6 months ago, you have anticipated and kept a contingency reserve of 30,000. That time you don't have to run from pillar to post seeking approval for tarpaulin and money. This is exactly the risk management. So 30,000 is approved and you can spend at your discretion. You don't have to take the approval of the general manager again. You don't have the approval of the accounts manager again. You don't have to take the approval of the HR manager again because you got the approval, but they'll release the money at that time. And you can hire the tarpaulin and go ahead and continue with the concreting without any interruption because you identified that risk, you kept a contingency reserve, and you are going smoothly with the whistling around the site. When others are surprised, how this guy is able to continue roof concreting even when the rain is occurring. You can say that is the beauty of risk management. With the contingency reserve, with the identifying risk, with the prioritizing them as high, medium, low priority, etc. Okay, next we will go to secondary risk. The positive risks are called opportunities, so I am not going to touch it. That is another subject itself, opportunities. We have taken only negative risk, the previous one. You see the negative risk, threats. So the rain during roof concreting is a negative risk which will impact your project negatively. So that is what is negative risk we have discussed. Opportunity or positive is when it occurs, it will help you to finish the time early. When it occurs, it will help you to finish the project in lesser budget. That is positive risk. One example I can tell you is cement price decrease after you signed the contract. Suddenly cement price you quoted with one bag as 350 rupees. But after you signed the contract, taken up the project down the line due to some other non-controllable factors, cement bag from 350 per bag to it has reduced to 200 rupees per bag. That's a positive risk. So we'll not get into that. That's another session. How to manage opportunities in projects. That is how to identify opportunities in a project, how to respond to them, how to manage them. That's another session. Now, what is secondary risk? I told you roof concreting, why I took that. Now, normally many people do not identify the secondary risk. They identify only the primary risk. Primary risk is rain during roof concreting. Sir, what is then secondary risk? A risk occurring as a result of response to the main risk. Response to the main risk. What is the response to the main risk here? Erecting tarpaulin, approving night work, erecting lights, night lights. Now, when people work at night and when you erect tarpaulin during rain, people may slip due to wetness, fall. Due to poor lighting, they may fall and break their head or break their leg. Or due to somebody falls on the bracing, tie rods, breaks the tie rod. And because the tie rod is broken, the entire tarpaulin might caving in of the tarpaulin. These are all risks originally won't occur. If there was no night concreting, if there was no tarpaulin, these risks won't occur. These are you erected, you approved because of the main risk called rain during roof concreting. But you implemented a poor response. And the poor response was the cause for the new risk, that caving in, inadequate tie rods, poor lighting, and accident during night. These are all secondary risks. Now, as a great project manager, as a site engineer or site manager or CEO or as a VP project manager, please never be contented with identifying only primary risk and response and implement. Whenever you identify primary risk, do identify the related secondary risk that may be caused by the response to the primary risk. I have given examples for primary risk and secondary risk also. That's enough. Now we'll go to the residual risk. Residual risk is risk remaining after the treatment to the primary risk is over. Now primary risk was rain during roof concreting. Fine. You erected tarpaulin and continued with the concreting. You finished it. Next day, concreting finished. You removed the tarpaulin. And then there was too much of water stored on one corner of the roof. And that increased the water cement ratio or component. Still it has not cured, it is wet. So there is a possibility of that portion of concrete likely to be reconcreted. Possibility. So residual risk, there is a residue. Although 100% roof, you are supposed to do it right the first time, there is a residual portion of 5% of the roof area over wet or over concrete. The thickness is very high. Okay, let us take thickness of the roof poured is very high. Thickness of the roof is 200 mm prescribed. But due to late concreting, tiredness, poor lighting, people poured 2-3 more bonds of concrete over some area. That became 200 mm, 220 mm, 220. That is 2 centimeter more. Now that obviously next day morning you see it looks very thick, high. Now you have to chip it up and take, that is a residual risk. The residual risks are passively accepted. You can, simple. But anyway, risk is a risk. It's a river. You should not, you are supposed to uniformly pour only 200 mm. But you have poured 220 because night it was not lost tired. That is the residual. Residual risks are risks left after main risk is treated. They are usually very passive, very low impact in nature. They can be treated passively. You can treat it slowly. Okay, sir. Next slide, please. So I'm done with the residual risk. So can you, triggers, warning signs. This is a very good point. You know what is trigger or warning sign? I told you rain during roof concreting. So when should you erect the roof concreting? When should you erect the tarpaulin? That is the response implementation. You are supposed response planned was 6 months ago. Sir, I will erect a tarpaulin in case rain occurs. Don't worry. But did you erect the tarpaulin next day itself? No. Just 3 days before or 4 days before. Now, sir, how do I erect 3 days before? What is the indication? You have to see the symptoms for the rain, warning signs, triggers. So, in your schedule, you will definitely know exactly which day you are going to concrete the roof. So, probably today, let us say, today is 18th June. Let us say 22nd June, roof concreting is planned. Today onwards, you have to every hour watch the TV, weather forecast, etc. So today evening, suddenly, low depression in Bay of Bengal. There can be rain in the next 2-3 days. Exactly, warning sign, symptom, you have heard. So tomorrow itself, call that tarpaulin erector, tell him to day after tomorrow itself you erect. That is what is trigger warning sign. You have to know the warning sign for implementing the response, risk response. Then other responses already have covered. Watch list also. I told you for low and medium risk. I told you this extra residual risk, the extra concrete poured. That's a low priority risk. So just put in a watch list. Emerging risk. That's a beautiful one. Okay, you identified everything in the same roof concreting, but you forgot to identify somebody falling down. Although you took care of night light, somebody asked, hey, what if somebody falls down? No, that's why I am erecting night light. No, so there won't be anything. You brushed aside long before, but then you forgot. Then you were concreting middle, almost 11 o'clock. It's all going fine. Rain is also pouring and everything going fine. Suddenly at 11 o'clock, out of maybe tiredness, sleepless, somebody falls. That's an emerging risk. You never even thought of it. Now, emerging risks generally are not pre-planned risk. That's why it's called emerging risk. It just emerged. You never, even in your wildest dream, thought that somebody would fall because of some poor lighting or poor sleeplessness, etc. So that's an emerging risk. And now, emerging risks, you won't have a planned response. See, this tarpaulin erection is a planned response. You planned that when the rain occurs, I will erect a tarpaulin. That's a planned response. But if you had a ambulance waiting near the site, already ordered, ready, and somebody fell down as you expected, that is no longer an emerging risk. It is already a planned risk. That you planned that someone might fall, and you didn't plan. You identified that someone will fall, sleeplessness, and for that the response is carry them to hospital immediately. So that's a response. So that's a planned risk, identified risk and planned response. Now, normally people don't go to that level. So it happens as an emerging risk, at least in the first site. And then they suddenly, for emerging risk, they have only workaround, not a planned response. So workaround is make a temporary structure using the scaffolding, rods, and some shirts or lungis or vesties, put a temporary structure, ask 4 laborers to carry him in the structure to the nearest road and carry him to the car and take him to hospital. This is workaround. Workarounds are unplanned responses to emerging risk. So a good manager, a good engineer, site manager also tries to keep the workarounds and emerging risks minimum, but emerging risks, as the name indicates, can't be avoided. But people like us, where we are very highly experienced, we will try to convert the emerging risk into identified risk. That's where the success lies. Okay, implement risk response. The tarpaulin erection is the implementing the risk response. Okay, sir, last slide. So this is the last slide. In another 10 minutes, I'll be finishing my session, please. Okay, sir, next slide. Next slide has come. 3-point estimate. See, I told you how much time the project will take. So if somebody asks, no. How much time you need reserve in case there was a rain? In case there was a rain, how much time you need? Sir, how do I know? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, how do I know? Then that time, don't say, how do I know? I'm giving a tip today. See, always you people imagine that the asker, the boss, the customer asks a single point time that you should take 11 days, 9 days. No, that's your assumption. You can always answer with a 3 point. Sir, optimistically, I may need 1 week extra time in case the roof concreting rain occurs. 1 week extra, optimistically, that is best case. Pessimistically, worst case, 3 weeks. Most likely, ideal, most likely 2 weeks. That's a 3-point estimate. That is best case, worst case, that is other extreme, and then ideal case, 2 weeks. So best case is 1 week, ideal case is 2 weeks, worst case is 3 weeks. This is 3 point. People will be happy, the clients and your bosses. Never in your life anybody asks anything, budget or time frame, even if you don't know on that subject. But you have to have at least working knowledge. Without working knowledge, you are not even qualified to talk on that subject. But you don't have to have expert knowledge to estimate, but you have some working knowledge on the subject, any subject. You can, if somebody asks, tell me a time, how much time you need to finish it. Don't say, sir, I don't have knowledge, I cannot tell you. Sir, I have working knowledge. Instead of 1 single time, I'll give you 3 time estimates, please. What is that 3 time? So best case, I need 1 week. Worst case, I need 3 weeks. Ideal case, I need 2 weeks. Most probable case. They'll be very happy. So within that, you're giving a range of 1 week to 3 weeks. Within that, they'll give you sometimes, say 10 days. Not 1 week, not 3 weeks. 3 weeks is 21, 1 week 7. They may give you 10 days. You're happy. And they'll also appreciate you. Okay, yeah, I know you don't have much knowledge on this. But still, you have given me a very reasonable estimate. I appreciate your common sense. The 3-point estimate is a common sense estimate. It will help you a lot. Triangle. The 3-point estimate generally follows a triangle. That is what the lowest one is best case. The middle one is the peak of the triangle is ideal one. And the extreme one is the worst case. That is a triangular distribution. SWOT, all of you know, it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats analysis. So what is the strength of India? What is the weakness of India? Before going into war with China, people at top and Delhi, strategic consultants, managers, defense people, they'll do a SWOT analysis now. They've already done. What is the strength of India, weakness of India? What is the opportunity and the threat? So that is how we can face, what are the threats, how much weapon they have. For the same thing you can do for your project also. What are the strengths of your project? What are the weaknesses in your project? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? Accordingly, you can have a strategy. So, risk audit. After identifying risk, better you appoint a risk auditor externally, paying some 10,000 rupees, 20,000. I don't know. It may be more or less depending on the project. Appoint an external auditor who are very good in this. They will identify more risk or less risk. They'll prioritize. They'll give you better response. So it's always worth to appoint a risk auditor if you are very serious about risk management. They'll give you a very frank opinion. Then Monte Carlo, I told you, the huge projects are, especially the risk exposure. Risk exposure, that client asked, okay, I have given you 10 months and 1.2 crore as the budget, but I know you may complete it, but I know also you may not be able to complete. Can you fairly tell me for our planning purposes? Can you fairly tell me, openly tell me? Will not scold you now, because this is the first month they will ask for their planning purposes. Not at the 10th month. Fairly, can you please tell me if you have some good analytical ability, how much time risk we are exposed to? Not the 10 month, how much more than? How much budget risk we are exposed to? That is over and about 1.2 crore. How much you will come and ask us begging later? And 10 months, instead of 10 months, how much extra time you may legitimately take You may not openly tell, but we will not penalize you, but please tell us for our planning purposes. So that if we are in the rented house, we might not check out at the end of the 10th month. We may extend, let us say we are exposed to 2 months of risk slippage, scheduled slippage. Then we'll extend the rented house for 2 more months. That will be helpful for us, our planning. That is called risk exposure. How do you estimate it? You cannot wild guess, like 3-point estimate. You have to go for Monte Carlo simulation. So there is a curve next. Can you please show that S curve? With that, I'll stop. After that, only about 2-3 minutes. There is one S curve, sir, below this. Can you please move to that S curve? So next one is the last point, last topic. So with the S curve and the knowledge management, knowledge repository management, I'll bring the session to an end. Sir, can you show that S curve, please? Two slides down the line. So that S curve addresses, that is the output of Monte Carlo simulation here. That is based on 5,000 simulations. The project will be simulated technically on the laptop using the Monte Carlo analysis software. 5,000 times the same project if done, various permutations, combinations. What it will end up, at what time frame and what budget it will end up. That's what is called Monte Carlo simulation. In that you can also see the variances in completion time, and you can also update the risk register. So I need to see this Monte Carlo curve, please. So that curve tells you actually, that looks like an S curve. That's why it's also written here as an S curve. So that curve shows you for the entire project after 5,000 simulations, what is the probability of, first it will show you what is the probability of completing the project in the given, originally given target time. Sir, can I see that S curve, please? Can you move to that S curve? Probably, I think 1 or 2 slides, next slide. This is the one. You see here, the first one, this point, that is the target time for this project it was given. Here actually they have given the budget, but let us say this is also time. So let us say this is 10 months, that time in the x-axis. The x-axis is, let us say, time. 10 months they have given. The 10 months is cutting here, the S curve is cutting here. The horizontal, it comes to about 23%. That is the probability of success. So that means to the client you can say, sir, I am not telling from my own gut feeling. This S curve comes out of 5,000 simulations. N, small n population, sample size is equal to 5,000. That is, the project is same project is simulated 5,000 times, and this Monte Carlo software gives you this S curve. Using this S curve, I'm telling you, sir, this 10 months completion time has got only 23% chance of success. That means there is only a 23% chance probability that I'll complete. Our company will complete within 10 months time. So what do you mean? Sir, there is a 77% of probability that we might exceed 10 months. Oh, that is what I wanted. So what is the 95% probability that you'll complete, which is the time frame? So what you do, in the vertical axis, go to the 95% probability, come horizontal, draw a horizontal line, where it touches, come to the x-axis and see this is 10 months to 11, 12, 13. So 13 months, I'm just taking some arbitrary figure, 13 months. Sir, if you want 95% probability of success and you want a time frame that has 95% of chance of success, that is 13 months, sir, instead of 10 months. What do you mean? You mean 3 months more you want? So that you will guarantee me today 95% you will guarantee me that you will complete within 13 months. So you mean you want me to extend my tenancy by 3 months instead of 10 months from now? Yes, sir, that's what I really mean. That means, sir, you are exposed to 3 months of scheduled slippage. That is what scheduled exposure. Slippage risk. Scheduled slippage risk is called scheduled slippage exposure or scheduled exposure. Scheduled risk exposure. So you mean we are exposed to a scheduled slippage of 3 months? Yes, sir, that's what I mean. Now, okay, some clients really appreciate for telling that. For that, they can plan. They're not much worried about the slippages, but at least you did not drag them and put them in a trouble at the end of the 10th month. You immediately informed within 1 month by doing one call. They'll appreciate your high technology risk management ability. Okay, thank you very much, man. Actually, if you had told me on the 10th month, because of the fear in me, or because of the fear normally people have, I would have really been in mess. I would have really scolded you. This is why risk management is respected worldwide. But as an ethical company, ethical project manager, you cannot take it as an advantage that now the client is willing to absorb 3 months. So now we will automatically extend the project to 13 months instead of 10 months. No. Even after knowing it, assessing the risk exposure, your originally quoted promised him that by all chances you will complete in 10 months and some budget. You have to be fair to that code of conduct. And worst come worst, and client also will be watching. So that's the worst case possibility I'm telling you. The Monte Carlo, what it gives, that's the worst case. So the client judges that yes, you did take all your sincere faith and effort, still you exceeded. He already told me, yeah, say 7 months, 8 months also he told. But I also watched 10 months. He really did take a lot of interest to complete in 10 months. But something went out of hand. Probably the time frame we gave in 10 months is too tight. Probably nobody can do it. That's what. So I will not. He will consider it as an excusable risk, excusable delay. There are 2 types of delay in any project: electrical, civil, mechanical. Excusable delay, inexcusable delay. Inexcusable delay will attract liquidated damages. That means client will not excuse your delay. He will prove that the delay is because of your mismanagement, poor risk management, poor sincerity, poor material buying, poor internal culture. Adalla inexcusable delay. He will charge you 3 months liquidated damages. If he assesses that you are really sincere, still you got delayed because of the factors not controllable by you, that is excusable delay, and they would really like it and appreciate it, and they may not charge you any liquidated damages. So by good risk management, effective risk management, by capturing the lessons learned, and by documenting the lessons learned, by sharing it with all, you can do effective risk management. Also inform the clients to take more informed decision, so that they'll be on board with you, help you in managing the project risk effectively, and you all will work in a collaborative manner rather than in a win-lose, you and me, you versus me. From that, you and me as a collaborative team, we will try to complete this project because you did a very good risk management. You informed us. We appreciate those risks. We will, to the extent possible, to complete the project with all these risks within the original time and the original budget. Even the clients and consultants will come to your help. So that is because of your effective risk management in projects. Thank you very much. This completes. Thank you all. Sir, you can, I have finished my webinar or session. You can go to the thank you slide, please. Yeah, so
Yes,
go to the thank you slide. Formally, I'll show you the thank you slide. Yeah, thank you. Then question and answer. Next slide, please.
Yes,
yeah, any questions from the participant, you can read out to me.
Yes, sir. Sir, first of all, thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. I felt your these things on entire presentation. I hope this might be highly useful to the participants to take away many things from this presentation.
Sure.
And your energy level was very high until you were entering the last slide. So happy to see such a wonderful resource person. And thank you so much for accepting our request, even though we have been given you at the short notice.
Short notice, yes. That is the courtesy. Sorry to interrupt. That's the courtesy I wanted to show Dr. Parthiban. We have a very long association. So
Yeah,
I
great.
know he is the one. Next to me. I have seen if any sincere person, I regard him as the most sincere person. So it's out of sincerity I gave that respect within 2 days notice only. I think
Yes, sir.
2
Yes, sir.
days
Yes,
for
sir.
him,
Yes, sir.
not even 2 days. I think day before. Yeah, 2 days only. Thank you. Now who is on the video? Please, can I know?
Sir,
that
I am allowing some peoples. So I'm allowing some peoples.
Yeah.
Ms. Anusha, Ms. Vijay Lakshmi, Meghna, and Dr. Padmanabhan. You all have been allowed to clarify your doubts with sir. So
Yeah.
please come online. So I have allowed you. Please come online and you can clarify doubts with sir one by one.
Any questions you can post to me, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And, sir, one question asked by Mr. Mohammed Ganjaman. Sir, can you give a little bit more idea on SWOT analysis with an example?
Yeah, the SWOT analysis, for example, it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So let us take a construction project itself. You are appointed as a project engineer, and then you are supposed to, before starting the project, you need to analyze what are the strengths. See, put a table of SWOT. One column strengths, another column weakness, another column threat, another column opportunities. Normally, strengths become opportunities and weaknesses become threats. So we will first to only identify strengths and weaknesses. Internal strengths, internal weaknesses. External strengths, external weaknesses. So under strengths column, you can first put the internal, subheading internal. So internal strengths, for example, you have a highly skilled laborer for construction. That is an internal strength. Your company has highly equipped with the cranes and mixture machines and good scaffolding, rods, construction materials, huge. So these are all strengths. Some companies may not have. They may ask you to hire from outside. They may not have skilled. So these are all weaknesses. But I'm only listing the strengths. Now these are all strengths. Then one more strength of the company could be they are financially very sound. For example, you want to mobilize, construct office, clear the bushes in the site, erect a temporary fence and hire a house for renting purpose, your staff staying purpose, porta cabin. This all needs, say, 2 lakhs. Your company, if it is very good, financially sound, they may wait for the advance from the client. If the client is delaying the mobilization advance, if your company is able to give you this money, you can start the project and do all these works with the 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs as a. But if the company is not financially sound, then they may, no, wait. You don't start all these works. We have not got the mobilization advance. So if the company is financially sound, that is a strength. If it is not, then if you assess it, it's not giving money initially from their pocket, even 2-3 lakhs for a 1.2 crore job, you put it as a weakness on the weakness column. Like this, identify all the strengths, internal strengths and external strengths, all the weaknesses. So if the weaknesses are, so assuming that the strengths are 10, and give 1 point to each strength, and give one more negative point to all the weaknesses. And then if you say there are 14 weaknesses, so minus 14. If there are 9 strengths only, upper, plus 9 minus 14, that means minus 5. So weaknesses are more in your company than the strength. In that project, for you to handle, you have more weaknesses in front of you than the strengths. So you need to be careful in committing to the client, in awarding overtime, assuming your company policy is not to award overtime. Definitely you should put it under weakness only. So you can't promise to the client earlier completion. You can't promise to the team members some overtime, because overtime means always they get some extra money, so they are motivated. But you can't ask them to come on Saturday, Sunday. So these are all weaknesses. Since weaknesses are more in your company, you have to tread carefully. Don't commit too many things to your team members, too many promises, too many increments, and also don't promise too much to the client that, sir, my company is great company, I will complete this, I will get you that material day after tomorrow itself. Those things, because weaknesses are more. This is how you have to change your attitude and approach depending on the SWOT analysis. Fine? That's it, sir. So that is the answer.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your brief answer.
Next question, please.
Yeah, let me. Okay, so I have called some people to come online, but because of their technical difficulties, they are unable to come. They think so.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So,
sir, what is the Mr. Palani Kumar had asked one question. Sir, what is the impact earned value analysis in project risk?
That's a good call. That SCARO I told you, that is a Monte Carlo simulation that determines the risk exposure and contingency reserve for the overall project. Now, when you complete, how much the project will be delayed, how much budget yearly you can determine on a 12-month project. When you are in third month itself, by doing a Monte Carlo simulation, you can do this. That is risk exposure. But when you are in the middle of the project, let us say a 12-month project, you are in the third month or fourth month, and you are planned to complete, say, let us say, okay, let me say simply, 10-month project, you are in the fifth month. Now, pro rata basis, you are supposed to have you are planned to achieve 50% progress. That is pro rata basis. Fifth month, 10th month, 100%. Every month, 10% we are assuming. So fifth month means 50% you should. That is planned. First month itself, you plan to complete. On fifth month, 50% progress. That is planned. Now, fifth month has actually come, and you have really made some progress. And you go and measure in the site the progress, and it is only 40%. Now you have to invoice. See, the earned value analysis measures everything in terms of the money only, in dollar, because the top management measures your performance in terms of money only. You may say, I'm a great performer, I go ahead, blah, blah. But how much money you earned from the client? That's what top management understands by doing a good work. So you have completed only 40% on the fifth month. So 40% means the client also will pay only based on your percentage actually progressed. You have actually progressed 40% only on the fifth month. So you can invoice only for 40%. So if it is 1 crore job, assuming again even distribution, that means 10 lakh per month. So you try to invoice 50 lakhs by fifth month planned, but you have actually progressed only 40%. So 40% means client will give you only 40 lakhs. So the earned money is less than 10 lakh, less by 10 lakhs. From the 50 lakhs planned, you have earned only 40 lakhs because you have progressed only 40%. So your schedule variance is 40 minus, that is actual progress, minus that planned progress, 50. So 40 minus 50, that is minus 10. Minus means you are slipping your behind schedule. That is what it's a yearly vending. Now itself, somewhere at the end of the fifth month itself, you come to know that you are behind schedule. So you have 5 more months, almost half of the time you are left with to make corrective action. If the client says, look, your early warning EV curve says, I agree that you are behind schedule by 10%, but what is the corrective action? You have to bring it back on schedule or ahead of schedule. So then you have to make corrective action on the fifth month in consultation with the general manager, procurement manager, site manager, HR manager. You may need additional resources, accounts manager, you may need some additional budget, and you have to submit to the client and consultant. This is my corrective action. 6th month onwards, we are removing some portion and going by mechanized construction. We were excavating manually. We will now use a jackhammer to excavate the rock, break the rock. We were earlier planning brickwork, masonry brickwork. Now for some areas we are planning concrete masonry unit, hollow block with your approval. So we will accelerate the progress in the next 2-3 months. That means 7th month, we are supposed to have completed 70%. Sir, I guarantee you in the next 2 months, on the end of the 7th month, we will see that we complete 80%. That means 80 minus 70 plus 10 lakhs or plus 10%. That means you are ahead of schedule. On the 7th month end itself, we have completed 80%. That means this EV curve, PV curve, EV curve, AC curve. There are 3 curves. So that itself is another 2-hour session. Earned value management is a very big, very useful, globally applied technique in almost all the projects. I'm just simply explaining only on the schedule risk part, not on the cost risk part. So on the 7th month, now you have accelerated by changing some corrective actions, from moving from manual work to mechanized work, and moving to some innovative technique, traditional method to innovative methods, and you have accelerated progress. Actually, you plan to complete only 70% on 7th month, but you have showed 80%. That means plus 10. 80 minus 70 is plus 10. Earlier it was minus 10. Now 2 months itself, you have progressed more. So client will be happy. Now, if you maintain that, you may finish instead of 10 months, 9th month itself you may finish, or 9.5 months itself you may finish the 100%. That means you may finish the project 2 weeks. There is a possibility of ahead of schedule itself. These are all possible only if you implement EVM, Earned Value Management System. Those 3 curves: PV, EV, AC. Fine.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That was a great question, actually.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And sir, you can cancel your screen share mode.
Come to. I cannot cancel.
Yes, sir, you can do it, sir. You can do it, sir.
No, where? I mean, I will accept the. Only, yeah. Now I'm the spotlight.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So let me give a concluding remark.
Yeah, please, sir. Please, sir.
Okay. So thank you all participants. At one time I saw almost 280, I think, members. So I'm really happy that so many attended, and mostly all of them, irrespective of their age and experience and their position, definitely they would have. This risk management is there not only in project, even in your family, even in your work friend, so everywhere. So business, so they would have benefited. And thanks also for a patient hearing from all the people. Thanks to all the moderators and the faculty members and those who raised questions. And also, finally, I very much thank Dr. Parthiban for giving this opportunity and arranging it agile manner, swiftly, such a very relevant topic in this VUCA world. And last but not least, I thank the chairman of the TIT, Chennai Institute of Technology, and the institute itself. And I thank you all. I look forward to meeting you in another more important session in the very near future. Thank you all. I am done now.
Thank you so much. On behalf of Chennai Institute of Technology also, we thank you a lot for your wonderful presentation. And so this is highly needed at this time. And you have explained the real-time example like the China, India, these things. So this type of example will never go away from their mind to understand the concepts. So thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We will meet in some other occasions. Sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you, sir. I think it's your chairman, correct? Sir, it's over.
Over, sir. Over, sir.
Over.
You can
Over, thank you. So you can. Yeah, we will. Yeah, I will quit.
I'll close this.